you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here to review the 1956 Western drama epic Giant, starring James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor, and Rock Hudson, directed by George Stevens. I chose this movie this week because I thought it would be an interesting topic to have Elizabeth Taylor movies since it's her birthday week this week. I guess I should start with how familiar I am with Elizabeth Taylor's work. And I'm going to show this by showing my list of movies that I've seen her in and what I think is her best and worst movies. Here we go. Number 1, The Flintstones. And that's it. Yeah, that's really it. Like, and in the Flintstones, it's like a cameo. It's like about a minute long. And aside from like episodes of The Nanny and that one episode of The Simpsons where she played Maggie for like a few seconds, that's it. That's all I know about her work, to be completely honest. In fact, the most I know of her work is through the tabloids about her personal life and her perfume commercials in the 90s. That's it. That's all I know. And I heard this actress was a very well-known, very beloved actress in big movies. I just never got around to it, which is why I was kind of excited to do these movies and start with what might be her second biggest and most well-known movie, which is the movie that I'm reviewing now, Giant. So let's get into it. Let's get into the review of Giant, directed by George Stevens. But before that, let's get into the plot. The film is based around the relationship between Leslie, who is played by Elizabeth Taylor, and Bick Benedict, who is played by Rock Hudson. It goes from their courtship through their marriage to when they become old. It focuses on the family and the place they live in Texas and the people that surround them, including the odd ranch hand Jet Rink, who is played by James Dean. So now that we've gotten through the plot, let's get into my 3 points. And my first point of the movie is that the 3 principal actors anchor a good cast. I think the 3 main actors do a very good job in this movie. When it comes to the relationship between Rock Hudson's character and Elizabeth Taylor, I think they work out very well together. I can believe that they are attracted to each other. There is a charisma between the two that makes them engaging. And the cast that surrounds them as well. There's a whole list of characters that come in and out throughout the entire film that makes the movie interesting. And they are also well cast and do a good job as well. But I will say that the 3 principal actors, which is Hudson, Taylor, and Dean, really anchor the film to make it interesting throughout the entire film. But what I will say is that the 3 principal actors, which is Hudson, Taylor, and Dean, do a great job carrying the film. My second point, this is a good old/new money storytelling. The first half is essentially a fish out of water story, where Elizabeth Taylor's Leslie has to get her bearings together and has to get used to being in Texas and to basically assert her authority as the woman of the household. And then it kind of strays away from that into like what their life is like after a certain event happens. And then it goes into this whole other plot line involving old money and new money and how they clash together in the land that they are living in. I won't spoil exactly what happens, but of course you can just read up on it and you can figure that out for yourself. There's definitely an interesting storyline that gets shown in this movie that I think is good, but could have done a lot more with that if they wanted to get more in-depth into it. But then again, now I'm thinking about it, it probably would have been a 4-hour film instead of a 3.5-hour film. Maybe that would not be such a great idea on that end. But it's definitely an interesting story, and it really makes the second half a little more interesting. I like how the plot diverges into something else into the second half of the film. And my third point, the characters are sort of lacking in this movie. I will say this is an entertaining movie. I do like this movie. But if I'm being honest, for a 3.5-hour film, the principal actors, with I think the main exception of Jet Rink, who is played by James Dean, they don't really go through that big of a change except for maybe aging and certain things with their relationship. The characters themselves don't really change. Leslie is as headstrong as she always is throughout the entire film. Bick is as much of an asshole as he always is throughout the entire film as well. That doesn't change except for maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes of the film. But I would really like to have more developed characters, specifically with the main leads. Now, this doesn't become a big problem, I will say, and I think that's mainly because the film makes the decision to just throw a bunch of new characters. Maybe characters get older and they have slight changes and alterations, or different situations happen, especially in the second half. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have a deeper character set when it comes to these characters. But if you like rich and well-developed characters, This may not be that satisfying, but the film peppers in all these interesting characters and situations that it's not really that big of a deal. On the one hand, I think the characters are kind of lacking for a 3.5-hour film, but I can't say I was ever bored with this film, which is the weird thing I'm going to have when it comes to recommending the film. So who do I recommend this for? I recommend this for people if you like family dramas. I mean, good God. Like, this is probably one of the more well-known family dramas out there. If you're into those kind of movies, I would say check this out, but mind the runtime of 3 hours and 30 minutes. I would also recommend this if you like fish out of water dramas. The first half is a fish out of water drama, which is Leslie trying to get used to being in Texas with the heat and the characters and the way that life is back then. It goes through those plot lines pretty briskly throughout that first half of the film. The second half is where it goes into the new money, old money thing, which I actually like, which I would also recommend if you're interested in that. But you would have to go through this fish out of water drama first to get there. Which, on another hand, now that I'm thinking about it, the second half is more of a fish out of water drama for Bick than anything else, so that kind of works in multiple ways. If you are into fish out of water dramas, that would work out too. Who do I not recommend this for? I do not recommend this if you cannot handle the length. It is 3 hours and 30 minutes, okay? Let me just put that right out there. 3 hours and 30 minutes long. If you can't handle the length, don't bother. Well, okay, I'll put it this way, though, okay? You could probably find a guide where someone could say, okay, where can I start and stop? If you can find a guide that says, okay, you don't want to watch it for the 3.5-hour film, that's fine. Stop here, then come back. Stop here, then come back. That might be a good idea, but if you're like me and you need to watch the entire movie in one sitting and you just can't handle 3.5 hours, don't bother. I would also not recommend this for people if you are bothered by the old ways. Bick is racist in our common parlance. He's also sexist. A lot of the way that the characters treat Leslie is also not great. How they treat women, how they treat other people, like stuff like that. Like racism is constantly in this movie until a certain point where the main character looks down on people who look down on people that he's around. If that bothers you, I would say avoid the movie, but I think it does turn around in that end. So unless you're extremely sensitive about this, give it a shot, but otherwise, if you are, go ahead and just not watch the film. So overall, I'm going to recommend Giant. I think it is a good film. I think it was entertaining. Here's the weird position I'm in right now. I watched the 3.5-hour film in one sitting, and I was never bored. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was entertaining. But nothing really sticks out to me as something that is like of a really high quality where I can like glowingly recommend. I think James Dean is the best actor in this film. I think he plays Jet really well, and he has the most depth of any character in this movie, even though he is a supporting character. I do like the relationship that Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson have in the movie, and I think they work well together. But on the other hand, I don't think they're great. I think they're good. I think they just make the film as good as it is. I'll put it this way. When I watched this film, it reminded me a lot of Gone with the Wind in a few reasons. One, it's about a strong-willed, independent woman. And two, it's about how the people around her are surviving at a certain point in time or are conversing with each other. But the key difference between Giant and Gone with the Wind is where the film focuses its story. And Giant is more about familial bonds and relationships than with Gone with the Wind, which is somebody who is trying to survive the Civil War. I wish there was more to this movie than just the familial bonds and the family element. Because I think the best parts of the film are when they stray outside of it and they go into Jet's story. I think Jet's story is really good in this movie. But when they just keep it along the family, it's good, but it's not great. But that's most of the film, unfortunately. And because of that, I can recommend it, but it's not something that I could honestly say you have to see. There are going to be people who disagree with me. That's fine. I understand that. I understand a lot of people are fans of Rock Hudson and maybe even Elizabeth Taylor. But I really like James Dean in this movie. It's weird. I think it's good. I recommend it. I was never bored. I enjoyed my time watching it. But it's not one of the best films I've seen. But overall, I do recommend Giant. It's a good movie. If you are interested in this type of movie, I would say check it out. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you like what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.